What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, as many Detroit Lions fans know, Matthew Stafford was playing at an absolutely elite level, and unfortunately his season was cut short. But if he were to play in all 16 games last season, Matthew Stafford would have been put among the NFL's elite passers last season just based off these stats. Now, Matthew Stafford's play last season has prompted some Detroit Lions fans, along with some NFL media coverages, to start putting him in this dark horse MVP competition. You know, there have been guys like Peter Schrager and some other NFL analysts that have been talking about dark horse MVPs, and they're starting to put Matthew Stafford in this conversation. And I think it's great to see that Matthew Stafford is finally getting some recognition in the NFL. However, with all the things that are lining up around Matthew Stafford and some of his comments off the field and his play on the field, it's seeming more and more likely every single day that Matthew Stafford could very well make a run at this MVP and have a legit shot at winning it in the 2020 season. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about Matthew Stafford's MVP candidacy, why it's very likely that he could win the MVP this season, and it's not as unlikely as some fans of other NFL teams are going to say it is. Now, before we do get into the video, if you are new to the channel and are enjoying the content, consider liking the videos and subscribing to the channel, as it takes only 2 seconds out of your day and it helps me push this content out to more Detroit Lions fans like yourselves. So if you could take those 2 seconds out of your day, it helps the channel out more than you could ever know, and I would be very, very appreciative for it. But with all that being said, let's get into talking about Matthew Stafford's MVP race and why it's very likely that he could actually end up winning the whole thing when it is all said and done in the 2020 season. Now, as I said, Matthew Stafford was playing at an absolutely elite level last season before his injury ended this season. Now, Matthew Stafford last season passed for 2,499 yards, 19 touchdowns, and only 5 interceptions. Now, if you double that so that it would be a 16-game season, that averages out to just under 5,000 yards, 40 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions, which by far would have been his most efficient career season of his NFL career. Now, those stats are impressive by themselves, but if you go more in-depth with some of the QBR stats and some of the aggressive throw stats, it gets even more impressive. Matthew Stafford was in the top 5 QBR against both man coverage, zone coverage, and the blitz last season, as well as being the NFL's most aggressive quarterback. Now, I can't remember exactly who came out with this stat, but, there was a stat put out that Matthew Stafford's wide receivers averaged the least separation in the NFL, and Matthew Stafford still had those stats with the least separation in the NFL. By no means am I saying the wide receivers are bad, but Matthew Stafford has to make a lot of tight throws, a lot of tight windows, and a lot of pinpoint accurate throws to even have a chance for his wide receivers to come down and make the play. And he does this game in and game out. He does this every single play, and that just shows you how good and how accurate Matthew Stafford is as a quarterback. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning, a lot of NFL analysts and Detroit Lions fans themselves have been putting Matthew Stafford in this dark horse MVP race that, a lot of other people, whether it be fans of other NFL teams or people that just aren't super invested in the Detroit Lions, are going to look at and say, Matthew Stafford, he's average at best. Why is Matthew Stafford being put in this category? And one of the major people that have, that recently has put Matthew Stafford in this dark horse MVP race is Peter Schrager, one of the hosts of Good Morning Football.
If you've watched the Lions talk, or if you've actually followed the league during the summer, it seems like the Lions are as more a cohesive bunch than they've ever been, and that is from ownership down to the general manager, to the coach, right down to the players. I believe that Matt Stafford still has some really good football left in his arm. I said earlier this offseason, I think he could be a dark horse MVP candidate.
Now, the Good Morning Football crew did a little segment talking about potential dark horse MVP candidates, and Peter Schrager ended up coming up with Matthew Stafford. Now, Matthew Stafford saw this, and, as many people know, Nate Burleson, former teammate of Matthew Stafford, is one of the hosts for Good Morning Football. So Matthew Stafford saw this and was, kind of insulted. He hit up Nate Burleson and he goes, "Hey, Nate, tell your boy Peter Schrager to take the dark horse right out of that sentence. I'm going straight for this MVP." Now, you might hear that from Matthew Stafford. You might say, that doesn't sound like Matthew Stafford. That is a very confident, very cocky Matthew Stafford that, out of a guy that is generally pretty quiet, that's, very unorthodox. That is very uncommon to hear out of a guy like Matthew Stafford, and it could come off very cocky. However, looking at all the things around Matthew Stafford, looking at everything he's done in camp so far, looking at what he did last year and all the things that are surrounding Matthew Stafford, it seems more and more likely that Matthew Stafford could definitely make a legitimate shot at winning this MVP, and is definitely going to back up what he's saying right now. Matthew Stafford last season had one of the most impressive seasons of his career and is showing no signs of slowing down. In camp so far, Matthew Stafford has been arguably the Detroit Lions' best player in training camp, as if you just watch the highlights or you look up anything about Matthew Stafford, all you see is these pinpoint perfect throws where the DB has great coverage on Kenny Galladay or Marvin Jones or Danny Amendola, and Matthew Stafford just flicks his wrist and all of a sudden it's about half an inch over the DB's fingers and Kenny Galladay is coming down in the end zone with a great toe tap catch. Or you see, Matthew Stafford throwing perfect back shoulders against Jeff Okudah with Marvin Jones, and Marvin Jones is coming up with these great one-handed catches on the sidelines for a huge gain. Like, you just see Matthew Stafford in these highlights, and you hear the Detroit Lions analysts talking about Matthew Stafford, and he is just having one of the most impressive training camps that he's ever had. And for a guy going into his 11th season, I believe that is one of the most impressive things for him. Now, Matthew Stafford is having a great camp by himself, and we know Matthew Stafford can produce with pretty much anybody. You put any wide receiver on the field that's NFL caliber, you put any receiving back out there, Matthew Stafford is pretty much going to make it work, and he is going to make your offense efficient. However, Matthew Stafford has one of the best surrounding casts as far as weaponry in the NFL. Not only is Matthew Stafford's primary weapons returning from last season, including Kenny Galladay, Marvin Jones, Danny Amendola, who were his big three receivers, TJ Hawkinson, who is the number one tight end and is still developing to become an NFL star, Marvin Hall, who was the biggest play threat on this offense last season. All five of those guys are returning, which were Matthew Stafford's 5 favorite targets last season. But Matthew Stafford is also getting Jamal Agnew on the offense, who is a big play threat. They're getting DeAndre Swift on the offense, who is a big play receiving threat. Jason Huntley, who is a big play receiving threat, as well as Quintez Cephas, who is just making amazing plays in camp himself. Matthew Stafford is retaining all of the weapons he had last year that, allowed him to pass for 2,499 yards in 8 games and allowed him to be on that 5,000 yard pace. But now he just added 4 more guys in the receiving room that are going to help in the receiving game, not to mention Hunter Bryant, who is a fit guy who I believe will make the tight end 3 position, and I think will be an integral part of this passing offense as well. So that's 5 new weapons for Matthew Stafford that are all going to help in the passing game. And 2 of those guys are running backs, but they are very good receiving backs as well as running backs. So I know DeAndre Swift and Jason Huntley are also going to get involved in the passing game. Matthew Stafford had one of the best surrounding casts in the NFL last season, and it got even better in this offseason. So with Matthew Stafford's play, being at the same level as last year, if not even improving in camp this year, and all the new weapons surrounding Matthew Stafford, he's going to put up ungodly numbers. Like, I would not be surprised if Matthew Stafford breaks the passing yardage in a season record. I would not be surprised if Matthew Stafford is one of the only players in NFL history to pass for 50 touchdowns this season, just like Patrick Mahomes did a few seasons ago. Because with all the weapons around him and his talent level, it's very possible that this could happen. All those weapons are fantastic, but the Detroit Lions, as said by a lot of Detroit Lions fans, are trying to transition to this run game. So how is Matthew Stafford going to put up all these great numbers if they're running the football? Well, the running backs have been having some injury concerns recently throughout the last couple of years, but primarily in training camp this year, as Bo Scarborough, DeAndre Swift, Kerryon Johnson, and some other running backs have been missing time in training camp so far. And while I do believe they will be healthy, if the running back injury concerns, if they continue, the Detroit Lions are going to have to lean on this pass game more, because if they don't have anybody to run the football, they're not going to be able to do it, and they're going to have to rely on Matthew Stafford's arm as well as the wide receivers and tight ends to really be the primary engine to this offense. And they're going to have to rely on Matthew Stafford a lot to keep this offense afloat and keep it productive so they keep putting up points. Obviously that is one, obviously that reason is, very speculative. The running backs might be healthy come week 1. The Detroit Lions might just be taking it very slowly with the injuries and being very cautious. But if these injuries continue with the Detroit Lions running backs, as we've seen in Kerryon Johnson the last couple of years, as we've seen with Bo Scarborough and DeAndre Swift in training camp so far, the Detroit Lions are going to have no choice but to lean on Matthew Stafford more and more as the season goes on, which is just going to give him more opportunity to get these numbers and to help put up points for the Detroit Lions. Now, the Detroit Lions and Matthew Stafford are also going into the second year under Darrell Bevell as the offensive coordinator. Last year, Darrell Bevell, it was his first year as the offensive coordinator, and we saw the transition. We saw the transformation that Matthew Stafford from 2018 season, which was his first season to not pass for 4,000 yards in I don't even know how many years, to Darrell Bevell's first year where Matthew Stafford was on pace for 5,000 yards. Like, we just saw the transformation from Jim Bob Cooter to Darrell Bevell. We saw that transformation. Matthew Stafford got so much better, and under year two of Darrell Bevell where they're learning the system better. They know the offense that much better. All the wide receivers know it better. Matthew Stafford knows it better. Everybody in that receiving game is going to be on the same page because they've all been in it for over a year now. So the offense is going to be that much better. The offense is going to be able to do that much more because the offensive players, the offensive weapons know this playbook much better now than they did last season when it came to week 1. And they're just going to be able to open up the playbook so much more. And with all these explosive weapons that they got Matthew Stafford, the offense, as good as it was last year, is going to look even better this season under Matthew Stafford, because not only is he going to have all these weapons, but all these weapons are going to allow Darrell Bevell to open up the playbook. They're going to allow Darrell Bevell to call more trick plays. They're going to allow Darrell Bevell to call more deep shots and allow wide receivers to get open in space and make moves, which we know a lot of them can do very well. And it's just going to be such an explosive offense. It's going to be such a fun offense to watch in the 2020 season that if the Detroit Lions start winning football games, the NFL is going to be put on notice about this Detroit Lions offense. And they're going to keep defensive coordinators up at night because it's just going to be almost impossible to stop all of these weapons with Matthew Stafford at the helm of this offense. Those are all great things, right? Matthew Stafford has all these weapons, second year under Darrell Bevell. He's, put up all these numbers before, and he's played very, very well in recent years. However, a lot of the MVP talk comes with team success. You're not going to see an MVP on a 3-win team. You're not going to see an MVP that doesn't make the playoffs, or it very rarely happens. A lot of the time, if it's an MVP, it's the breakout guy. It's the Patrick Mahomes who took his Chiefs to, the AFC Championship. It's the Lamar Jackson who had his Ravens at the number 1 seed and broke out. It's, either Tom Brady, who's, been very good for a long time and at age 40 put up one of the best seasons a 40-year-old quarterback has ever had. It's the storyline. It's the great, a lot of the MVP goes into storyline. A lot of it goes into team success, and the Detroit Lions haven't had that recently. But could you imagine the storyline of Detroit Lions going worst to first and Matthew Stafford being the leader and the reason for that? Could you imagine the Detroit Lions maybe even winning the NFC North for the first time in over 2 decades? That's a storyline for you right there. And if Matthew Stafford and the Detroit Lions do this, if they win a lot of games, if they make the playoffs, if they win the NFC North, Stafford's numbers are going to be there. The storyline is going to be there. The Detroit Lions are going to be a hot topic in the NFL. They're going to be the most talked about team, and Matthew Stafford is going to have more eyes on him than he's ever had. And the MVP voters are going to, look at that, check off their boxes. All right, he's got the stats. He was the leader they won. He was the reason they won games. He's the leader of that offense. The Detroit Lions won the North in over, for the first time in over 2 decades. The storyline is there. The stats are there. The reasoning is there. The Lions are the hot topic. Matthew Stafford, MVP, congratulations. Your team is the front runner for the Super Bowl because you are the MVP winner, and we're going to see Matthew Stafford holding that trophy by the end of the season. I think it is very realistic for that to happen, and, the only thing that the Detroit Lions have to do is improve the defense, which they have done. The defense has been revamped in this offseason as we've added Danny Shelton, Nick Williams, Jamie Collins, Duron Harmon, Jeff Okudah, Desmond Trufant. We've added all of these guys to this defense to hold off games. And it's not like the Detroit Lions were getting destroyed last year. They were just giving up. The defense was just giving up a lot of points in the fourth quarter, and that was losing us games. If the Detroit Lions defense can hold on just a little bit longer, if they can hold on for just that 8 to 10 more minutes in a football game that it takes for us to win the game, if they can get that 1 or 2 stops in the fourth quarter that allows the Detroit Lions offense to get the ball back and score and put the game away, then the Detroit Lions are going to win football games, and that is the last thing that the Detroit Lions have to do in order for Matthew Stafford to win this MVP. Because as much as he's going to put up numbers, as much as he is going to use all of the weapons and just put up ungodly stats, if the Detroit Lions aren't winning football games, Matthew Stafford's not going to get talked about. So the defense has to play better, and I think they will. I think with all the additions on the defensive side of the ball, the defense might not be the best in the division, it might not be the best in the conference, it might not even be a top 10 defense. But if the Detroit Lions defense is even at an average point, that 10 to 15 range, the Detroit Lions are going to win football games. Matthew Stafford is going to be the core reason for that because the offense is going to look much better than the defense, and Matthew Stafford and the Detroit Lions are going to be the hot topic in the NFL. And when you're the hot topic in the NFL, when you're the flashy new team that goes from worst to first, when you're the flashy new team that's won your division for the first time in over 2 decades, MVP voters and NFL, critics are going to take notice, and they're going to give you the recognition that you finally deserve, Matthew Stafford. So I truly believe believe, with Matthew Stafford's comments, with his confidence off the field, with his play on the field, with all the weapons he has, and, hopefully with the Detroit Lions having a better defense that can hold on to the leads Matthew Stafford gets them. The Detroit Lions are going to be a better football team, but Matthew Stafford is going to get all the credit for that. And he, at the end of the season, when the Detroit Lions win the NFC North, when they're the first team, the storyline is there, the stats are there, Matthew Stafford is going to be looked at as the MVP frontrunner. And do not be surprised if the Detroit Lions have their first MVP since Barry Sanders in the 2020 season. Now, with all that being said, that is all I got for you guys today. What do you guys think about Matthew Stafford? Do you guys think that he has a realistic shot to win the MVP this season? Or do you think that his confidence is not, it's not warranted quite yet? He has to show a little bit more, and the offense has to show a little bit more, and the team has to show a little bit more before we can necessarily put Matthew Stafford in that MVP race. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. But with all that being said, that is all I got for you guys today. If there is Lions news before tomorrow, I'll obviously make a video letting every single person know. But until then, that is all I got for you guys right now. Hope you guys enjoyed the video and had an absolutely fantastic rest of your day. If there is no Lions news, I will see all of you tomorrow with more Detroit Lions content. But until then, I will see all of you guys later. Bye, guys.